So once upon a time, the sea was a force of nature so vast that people were humbled by its magnitude and mystery. The ocean seemed endless. Mother Ocean enchanted us with her beauty and beckoned us with the knowledge that all life began in the sea, that the saltiness of our blood and our tears and the water in our mother's womb are the same as hers. In her watery womb, Mother Ocean also harbors and nourishes an incredibly rich and diverse web of life, the greatest diversity of life found anywhere on Earth. But when Popular Science wrote about the 10 worst jobs in science, they rated oceanographer as number 2, second only to being a hazmat diver whose research requires swimming through sewage. For an oceanographer, they noted, there's nothing but bad news, day in and day out. Most people still don't know that overfishing has depleted most of the Earth's fish stocks to near extinction, or that the world's coral reefs are dying. Few of us know that in areas of the Pacific Ocean, microscopic plastic fragments are 6 times more plentiful than the plankton that are the basis of the entire marine food web. Many folks still don't know how much toxic mercury from industrial pollution is concentrated in a can of tuna fish, but oceanographers do. Our next speaker offers a singular beacon of hope for the oceans. J. Nichols is a multidisciplinary scientist and one of the planet's most renowned ocean activists, as well as an author, a poet, and an artist. He has a particular affinity for the migratory life of the ocean, and most especially for sea turtles. A senior scientist at the Ocean Conservancy and a research associate at the California Academy of Science, he works with many nonprofit organizations, youth, fishermen, and researchers around the world to build what he calls an ocean revolution. But Jay is not only about revolutionizing the way we relate to the oceans, he's also reinventing what it means to be a scientist and effective activist. The science is kind of worthless, he says, unless it's tied to something bigger. I can tag turtles the rest of my life, track them, and watch them disappear. To change the way we treat the oceans, Jay knows, we must deal with people's social realities, what they eat, how they earn a living, and what their belief systems are. In order to change people's behavior, he believes, we must reach them early, ideally as children, to help them fall in love with nature and the sea. To reach the rest, he shares his love of the ocean with them, speaks to what they most love, and helps people develop new options. So along with traditional monitoring efforts, Jay has spent nights digging in dumpsters in Baja, hauling out hundreds of barbecued turtle shells to prove to Mexican officials that they remain popular in tacos. He's hired Mexican fishermen to teach them to tag turtles, encouraging them to name the tortoises after their own daughters. He's petitioned Central and South American Catholic bishops, asking them to discourage turtle dinners during Lent. He even organized a soccer tournament during hunting season in Malaysia to occupy the young men who would otherwise be out poaching turtles. And his efforts seem to be working. In 1990, when the Mexican government outlawed turtle hunting, the 25,000 female green turtles that had historically nested in Michoacan had been reduced to 250. Now, more than 1,500 female green turtles nest on Mexico's Pacific beaches each year. Yeah. Oh, wait, the best is yet to come. Jay has started numerous international grassroots collaborations with everyone from young people to fishermen to nonprofits, teachers, and scientists. In 2003, he and 8 others trekked 1,900 kilometers along the coast from Oregon to Mexico to bring attention to coastal issues. Having written over 50 scientific papers, book chapters, articles, and reports, he's also the author of a children's book, Chelonia, Return of the Sea Turtle, which has been translated into Spanish and is distributed throughout Mexico to low-income coastal youth. He co-authored the screenplay, Adelita's Journey, based on the true story of a loggerhead turtle's epic 9,300-mile migration from Japan to Mexico and back, a migration that he is credited with proving, by the way. A stunning example of what's possible, Jay has channeled his deep love of the natural world into a brilliant scientific career of effective global activism to catalyze an ocean revolution in each of us and demonstrate how we may most effectively bring it into fruition. Please welcome Jay Nichols.
Thank you. Perfect. I was going to originally be a hazmat diver, but I thought I'd do something a little bit cheerier and be an oceanographer. So, number 2 is not so bad. I love Bioneers. This has been a really great weekend, as I'm sure everybody's having a great weekend. Just a small note of sadness. I realized that no matter what I do, no matter how hard I work, no matter how hard I study, no matter how early I get up in the morning and how late at night I stay at the job, no matter how deep my wisdom can become, no matter what I do, I will never, ever become an Indigenous grandmother. So, even worse perhaps, I'll never become Van Jones either, so here. But, if I'm lucky, if I live a long life, I'll be one of those old white guys, and, we all know about those guys, We've got a small technical difficulty, so I think I'll just continue to ad-lib here. Getting our laptops to communicate with the projector. I want to thank a whole bunch of people, in particular my family, my wife Dana and my daughters Grace and Julia, who literally are the reason I get out of bed in the morning. In fact, really literally, they jump on my chest and yank me out of bed in the morning whenever they want to get up, which is really a different kind of thing. Well, as a child, I fell in love with the ocean, like a lot of kids do. We used to spend summers on the Chesapeake Bay where we would catch snapping turtles, get them into our arms, these big snapping turtles, get them into our arms and paint numbers on their shells, and then throw them back into the ocean. The thing was, they would swim around, and then we would eventually catch them again, and sometimes they'd have numbers on their shells. And those that had numbers on their shells were, the recaptures. It turns out that as an adult, I'm doing basically the same thing. I'm just chasing turtles around in the ocean, marking them, releasing them, and maybe recapturing them, and then calculating the population size. So at some point along the way, I discovered that I could make a living as a, hang on. Here we are on our planet, ocean. As Nina said, most of our planet is covered by ocean. 71% of our planet is ocean. 80% of the biodiversity is in the ocean. 90% of the habitat is oceanic, it's marine. Yet we refuse to accept that we are an ocean planet. Our relationship with the ocean is damaged. We're abusing the ocean. What is it going to be? Is it going to be a brave new ocean? Is it going to be a situation where we have technology and lockdown and monitoring and enforcement? Or will we be able to create an ocean revolution and make the changes that are necessary to protect our ocean? I thought of a better title after listening to talks all weekend. Basically, what we need is to respect our mother, ocean. The ocean is our mother. It's also our grandmother and our great-grandmother. I want to thank a whole bunch of people. I want to thank the Bioneers, the whole Bioneers team. A lot of people contributed information and graphics and their data to this talk. And, of course, I'd like to thank the ocean for giving us our food and our air and our well-being. I'm a scientist through and through, so I have to start off by clearing the deck, basically, and letting you know that I'm very biased. I'm not an unbiased scientist. I'm a highly biased scientist. I have an inordinate fondness for sea turtles. That's kind of a fancy way of saying I'm a turtle freak. I love them. I love them so much. I think about them all the time. I dream about turtles. I think about what they're doing. I think about where they're going. I love my girls, my kids. I love your kids. I love all kids. I wake up in the morning thinking I want to save the ocean for turtles and the kids, Grace and Julia and Dana, and the fishermen and their families that I get to work with. Amazing people all over the world making their living in, on, and under the ocean. I serve them. I serve our ocean. I serve our ocean planet. But we face an ocean crisis, a global ocean crisis. Make no mistake about it, to borrow a phrase. We're having an ocean crisis. I'm going to describe that ocean crisis. Two big reports have come out recently, a federal report and one by Pew Charitable Trust. Both say the same thing, huge tomes, 500-page reports. I'll summarize them here as succinctly as possible. Basically, what these two big, huge reports say is that we've put too much into the ocean. We've taken too much out of the ocean, and we're destroying the edge of the ocean, the land and the water at the edge of the ocean. I'm going to run through each of those three things, point by point, just so you really get a feeling for what we have done to the ocean. We put too much in. Our massive consumerism, our daily consumption of things, really important things that we need, like rubber ducks. You know, you got to have rubber ducks. So lots of plastic toys and plastic things coming out of our ears. And the packaging that these things that we need so much come in, just drowning us. We're drowning in stuff and the packaging that the stuff is shipped in. We're consuming plastic like it's going out of style. Plastic bags and plastic water bottles. I commend Bioneers for outlawing plastic water bottles at this conference. Let's make that national policy. No more plastic water bottles. I think we can all handle that one. It's just amazing. It's overwhelming when you stop and think of the amount of plastic that we're consuming. It all ends up where? You know, some of it's recycled, gets reused, but then it eventually ends up in our landfills. But where does it all go, really? Ever wonder where it all goes? Well, my daughter knows. My daughter Grace, we were walking down the street in Manhattan one afternoon going to my sister's restaurant. She has this great organic restaurant called Elemental Foods. Anybody know it? It's really good. It's great for lunch. So Grace and I are walking to get some lunch with my sister Jen, and we're walking, and Grace is a good Santa Cruz girl. She never walks past garbage without picking it up and throwing it away. So we're walking down the street in Manhattan, and there's garbage, so she picks it up, puts it in the garbage can. Walk a little further, about that much further, and there's a little more garbage. She picks it up and puts it in the garbage can. Half an hour later, we've gone half a block. It's really clean now, but we've only gone half a block. And I said, hey, Grace, you know, Jen's making some really good soup. We got to get there. We've got another half an hour of walking to do. I really want to get moving here. And she says, well, who's going to pick up the garbage? 4-year-old looking up at me, big city that I was born in, all around me. The 4-year-old's looking up at me saying, who's going to pick up the garbage? And I said, I don't know. She said, well, the garbage is going to end up in the river. And I said, yep, it might. And she said, then it's going to go into the ocean. And I said, yep, probably will. And then she said, the animals are going to eat it, and they're going to get sick and die. And I said, you're right. So that little 4-year-old is kicking my butt right there on the street, downtown Manhattan. Thank God for that little girl. She's going to be a leader of the ocean revolution. So when this stuff does end up in the ocean, it floats around out there. It goes down our rivers into our ocean. It accumulates in places that we now call garbage patches. Even the scientists call them garbage patches because they're areas with a lot of garbage accumulating. And you've probably heard some of the statistics. Animals like albatross, they evolved on a planet without plastic, without garbage of the sort that we're creating. They eat the stuff, they feed it to their young. This is the stomach contents of an albatross that died. Sea turtles, they eat everything they get their mouths on. Usually that's jellyfish, algae, other soft-bodied animals that you find out in the ocean. When we add plastic to the ocean, similar situation. They cannot survive on plastic. This is a hatchling green turtle from Australia. Its first meal was plastic. It didn't survive its first meal. In some parts of the Pacific Ocean, there's 6 times the plastic as there is plankton. That's amazing. The animals that eat plankton, like these red crabs, pelagic red crabs, beautiful little animals swimming around in the ocean, filter feeding. They're filtering everything out of the water, including the plastic. The squid, the tuna, the sea turtles, the bigger animals eat those crabs, and of course, we eat the bigger animals. So ultimately, where does all this plastic go? Around, out, and back, right back to us. We're also putting too much heat in the ocean. Global warming is ocean warming. We're on an ocean planet. If the ocean warms, the planet warms. As our ocean planet warms, it becomes less productive, more acidic. The currents and weather change, and the corals bleach. This past year, the alarm bells went off. We lost a lot of sea ice at the North Pole, a huge amount of sea ice. The alarm bells went off. The scientists, these quiet, conservative, humble scientists were freaked out. The alarm bells were going off. What happened here in DC? Not much. A little play in the New York Times. Not much of a reaction. The alarm bells are going off with regard to our ocean planet. Sea level is rising. It's going to continue to rise. As the ice melts, sea will rise. We will start to feel it in our coastal cities. Now, the problem with this ocean crisis is that we're all in it together. It's unifying. This is not sea level rise. If we could focus sea level rise, say, on a certain part of Washington, D.C., that wouldn't be such a bad thing. But we can't. Sea level rise is a unifying theme. We're all going to feel it. We're all going to be knee-deep in sea level rise. Coral bleaching in Australia. Why is the ocean getting warmer? Why are corals bleaching in Australia? Well, it comes back here to us in the United States, our policies, our habits, our consumption. Phytoplankton that makes shells in the ocean. We're seeing the trend where the ocean is becoming more acidic. Phytoplankton, like these coccolithophores, tiny little shelled organisms, little shelled algae. They make their shells out of calcium carbonate. They can't do that in an acidic environment. We are undermining the very base of life on our planet, the phytoplankton. Too much sound into the ocean. Michael Stocker, sound expert that's been here at Bioneers for many years, tells me that the ocean is getting noisy. We're just putting too much sound into the ocean everywhere. Too much sound, all kinds of sound. Michael will talk about that more this afternoon. Agricultural runoff. All of our pesticides on our farms, on our lawns, they all end up in the ocean. All of our fertilizers eventually into the ocean. Industrial pollution and sewage into the ocean. Even the fallout from the World Trade Center, the dust and the plume, these toxic materials that were turned into dust and plumes on that horrible day, September 2001, all of that ends up in the ocean. All of it. Ever wonder where it all goes? It goes into the ocean. It goes down our rivers. The great rivers of the world carry all of this stuff down to the ocean. It pollutes the coast. It pollutes our bays. It pollutes our sounds. North Carolina, here you see the plume of runoff and soil and pesticides going along the coast of North Carolina, creating dead zones around the world. These places where we're just killing the ocean by dumping all of this stuff in. Okay, now we've put too much in, we're taking too much out of the ocean. We used to fish in ways with natural materials. We would make nets out of things that the earth gave us. We would throw those nets. We would catch fish. We'd bring the fish home. We'd feed ourselves and our families. We would move around in search of fish by the wind and by our own power. Then petroleum came along, changed the equation. Engines, monofilament lines, monofilament nets, nets that last forever, nets that can be set at sea, the ability to go far and stay out for days and months, even years. We've been taking turtles out of the sea in numbers that the ocean just cannot sustain. We've been taking sharks out of the ocean in numbers that the ocean cannot sustain. The tuna, bluefin tuna, while we're taking the last of them, the price just goes up. $170,000, actually $173,000, recent record for one fish. That's driving the ocean extinction crisis. Whale meat continues to be sold. Whales continue to be hunted because there is continuing demand. We've eaten these animals into oblivion, Dr. Elliot Norris says. We are eating ocean wildlife into extinction. Rule number one about fishing: don't take more than the ocean can support. Simple. There's a place where you fish. There's a dynamic of what the ocean produces, what the fish can, how much the fish can reproduce, and what it makes sense, what it's sane to take. Rule number two: don't take all the big, old, fat fish. Why? Because they create more fish. Exponentially more fish. Not just twice as many fish because they're twice as big, exponentially more fish. The big, old fish need to stay in the ocean. Those are the ones that we want, however, for our plates. Collapsing fisheries around the world. I call this the fish curve because it's just a downward sloping, crashing curve. Fisheries around the world, tuna and billfish, even sea turtles and whales follow the same downward crash. Every ocean basin, every species we look at. 90% of the big animals in the ocean are gone. By 2048, scientists think that all ocean fisheries could be collapsing. Right now, 30% of our fisheries have collapsed, and 75% are exploited fully or worse. All of this is happening. Meanwhile, $30 billion of fishery subsidies are plugged into the system, mostly for building more fishing vessels and, guess, fuel, cheap diesel, propping up this overfishing crisis. Now, what's happening around the world as the fish collapse? People are looking for alternatives. I was recently in the Kai Islands, Indonesia, and this young man told me all about the new jellyfish fishery. Yum. Here in the US, cannonball jellies caught for the Asian markets. We are fishing down the food chain. We're fishing for jellyfish because that's what's there. So we're overfishing. Bycatch is this problem of catching things that we don't want. Setting our nets in the bottom of the ocean, pulling trawl nets along the seafloor, and scraping the seafloor and taking everything that's there in order to get the things that we want to eat. ancient corals, deep ocean corals being trawled up and then thrown back, or perhaps put into gift shops, maybe shellacked and put on a shelf. Fisheries bycatch. Shrimp trawling creates up to 90% bycatch. 90% of what is caught in a shrimp trawl can be non-shrimp, including things like sea turtles, sharks, fish, crabs, you name it, anything living on the seafloor. Try to find some shrimp in there. Yeah, there are a few. Those will be saved. The rest will be shoveled back. So, don't eat shrimp, please, unless you know where it comes from. And if you're interested in a sticker like this one, see me after the talk. Longline fishing, miles and miles and thousands of hooks set all over the ocean, indiscriminately catching animals, ocean wildlife, tuna, the target species, and swordfish. Animals like sea turtles and albatross. Gill nets, ubiquitous around the world, coastal gill nets set on the bottom, catching everything that swims by, including these unfortunate sea lions. The third part, we're destroying the edge of the ocean. Whether you look in Brooklyn, New York, my sister's town, or Montevideo, Uruguay, it's the same situation. Brooklyn, Montevideo, looks the same from above. Imperial Beach, California. Here's a house for sale in Del Mar, California. Summer 2003, when we did that long coastal trek. Saw it, it's on the market, thought I'd go check it out. Tried to guess how much it would be. $6.3 million for that green and white teardown. That's what they call these kinds of houses. If you pay $6.3 million for an 800 square foot house, it's called a teardown. What the hell is going on? By 2025, nearly 75 Americans are expected to live along the coast. We love the coast. We love it so much we're willing to pay $6 million for a house that will be torn down so we can walk out the door onto the beach, listen to the sound of the ocean while we sleep, which is beautiful. But you know what I say? Get a hammock, you know? This is what's happening around the world. The trend is towards the coast. The big cities on the coast. People buying second, even third homes along the coast, pushing the population to the coast around the world. Mangroves, coastal mangroves, so important to the vitality of the ocean, to the health of the ocean, to the reproduction of our seas, being developed to produce, you guessed it, more shrimp. Number one seafood in the US is shrimp. Most of it is imported. Most of that comes from destructive shrimp farms around the world. As these coastal forests are destroyed, erosion increases, exacerbating the problem. Red earth bleeding into the sea. In the Florida Keys, up to 90% of the reefs are gone, the coral reefs, through warming and pollution. We need to leave some of the coast alone, period. We need to let it do its thing. We need to let it stay there for the animals. And if we visit, let's just leave footprints. We need some coastal wilderness. So we put too much in, we've taken too much out, and we're destroying the edge. What do we need to do? What's the call to action? Less in, less out, protect the edge. Got it? Okay. Less in, less out, protect the edge. One more time. Less in, less out, protect the edge. Hope. So there is hope. There's a lot of hope. We need to start an ocean revolution. We need to increase our knowledge. We used to understand the ocean as impenetrable, mysterious, boundless. Now we know it to be fragile, still mysterious, but less so, but finite. Dilution is not the solution to pollution, and the ocean is not an endless bounty. But the technology is telling us things about the ocean that we didn't know. And I'm not saying the technology is going to save the day. But we used to track sea turtles with weather balloons back in the 1950s, and just simple flipper tags. Then we tracked this turtle in 1996 named Adelita, named her after a fisherman's daughter, put her into the ocean, and she took off and swam all the way from Baja California, Mexico, across the ocean to Japan. Millions of kids tracked her on the internet and became ocean revolutionaries in the process. They connected their hearts to this turtle as she made it all the way across the Pacific Ocean. The first animal ever tracked across an ocean basin. Amazing thing, mind-blowing stuff. Now people study lots of animals. Scott Schaefer studying these little shearwaters, and they're swimming all over the Pacific Ocean. We didn't know that before. Barbara Bloch studying these bluefin tuna, learning amazing things about these migrators. The explosion of information related to studying these animals, to tracking these animals, is amazing. We know where they go, but we wanted to know more. So we put some cameras on their backs. And in this case, here's a green turtle. We used to think green turtles just ate algae and seagrass. But now we know they also eat sea pens. Sea pen. There's a sea pen. Looks good. Whoa. Got it. All right. Sea pens are invertebrates. This is exciting stuff for a sea turtle freak. I'm telling you. The CritterCam team has put these cameras on more than 50 different species and deployed them 500 times around the world. Here's a penguin. We used to think penguins fed at the ocean floor. Now we know they feed on the surface of the ice. Amazing, amazing stuff, breakthroughs. There's Grandma and Grandpa exploring the ocean, the deep ocean, back in 1935. And because of this late start, I'm going to be a little bit longer than the timekeepers are saying, so bear with me on that. So, the beautiful thing about Grandma and Grandpa is they always held hands when they dove. Now, we got bigger toys. And, there's this thing about men and their toys, right? Well, who has the best toys? Sylvia Earle, Bioneer, a woman, a grandmother. She's amazing. She's got the best ocean toys. We now know that the ocean bottom is much more diverse than we thought. These primoids, these sea fans on the sea floor in the Gulf of Alaska, 2,700 meters deep. Down there is a forest, a rainforest, ocean. We're studying the sea floor. We've got technology to study the surface of the ocean. We've got buoys all around the ocean that allow us to know about temperature, allow us to know about currents. We're studying the ocean from space. We can see what's going on with chlorophyll in the ocean from space. We can see what's going on with algae blooms, phytoplankton blooms off the coast of Baja California from space. We can see what boats are doing. We can see what trawlers are doing from space. A brave new ocean. A brave new ocean. We can take all this technology and just control everything. Is that what we want? I don't think so. I don't think that's where we really want to go. You ever feel like you're being watched? You are. This technology can be used to save our Mother Ocean. It can be used to destroy our ocean. That's what the ocean revolution is all about, taking the knowledge, building the global network, and communicating it creatively in the service of life, not in the service of homeland security, greed, destruction, in the service of life. Ocean revolutionaries build social networks, and they communicate with spirit, innovation, creativity, and love. Sylvia Earle, Bioneer, ocean revolutionary extraordinaire. Tohanish, the Shinnecock Nation on the east coast of the US, young ocean revolutionary. Of course, Diane Wilson. There's nothing more to say about Diane Wilson. Tom Jones, paddling the entire coast from Oregon down to Mexico, calling out the ocean pollution problem. The Cousteaus, the young grandchildren of Jacques Cousteau. Xander Rhodes, coastal and sea turtle activist. Mr. Leatherback, also sometimes known as Rod Mast when he's not disguised, a Bioneer. Captain Charlie Moore, fighting for plastics in the ocean. Julio Solis, a baykeeper. The person who made this sign. The person who made this sign. But not the person who made this sign. Whoever Harlan's got it wrong. He's not an ocean revolutionary. Ben Namakin, a coastal activist fighting for Pacific islands that are going underwater because of global warming, because of sea level rise. Will Henry, an ocean warrior fighting to save waves. Einstein is an ocean revolutionary. Erica Molina from the Seri community. Hoyt Peckham, a grad student, communicating his science effectively. Carlos from Mozambique, a dive master, amazing man. Francisco Fisher was a sea turtle poacher, calls himself a protector. Efrain de la Paz was a shark fisherman, calls himself a sea turtle protector. Our friends from the Planetary Coral Reef Foundation, and my mom and dad. We need an ocean evolution. We have 1 trillion decisions. We need to live blue. We need to live like the ocean matters. We need to live like we depend on the ocean. We need to live blue. We need to clean up our crap. We need to pack it out off of the beaches. We need to remember that shrimp suck. We need to teach our kids about sea turtles and have them get in the ocean. We need to celebrate. We need to have parties. We need to have concerts. We need to celebrate. We need to have parties. We need to have concerts. We need to surf. And we need to do something in Washington, D.C. I'm all for grassroots movements, but as long as things remain the same in our capital, things are just not going to change. So let's get that administration with their heads up their butts out of there and make this ocean revolution a real thing. Thank you.